Hi everyone, my name's Jeannie from Parenting Together Apart. Today we're at the White Table discussion, and here as a guest we've got Jared Purcell from the Broken Fathers podcast. Welcome, Jared. So we'd start with just to tell us a little bit about your podcast and, what that mission is all about.
Yeah, sure. So long story short, my family court came to an end July last year. Wasn't the result I wanted, and I moved away thinking that a fresh start would do me some good. My daughter's gone now. She's in England living with her mother, and I wanted to tell my story about the family court, but I wanted to tell it on a platform that I trusted. So a mate of mine, Matty Morris, that owns Zero Limits podcast, a fellow veteran. I called him. I said, man, I want to come on and tell my story. Yes, I'm happy to talk about military life, but I want to really talk about my time during the family court, and you're the only one I trust that's not going to edit it and let me say it for what it is. He said, yeah, of course. He said, why don't you do your own podcast? And I said, what on? He goes, on family court. I said, you know what? That's a good idea. So I knew when my daughter left, I was going to have to find purpose. Easier said than done, right? I needed to find something that was going to keep me busy and drive me. And that's how it came about. And before you knew it, I was making phone calls. I found a room. I found an editor. We went and bought all the stuff, and everything's just sort of fallen into place. I'm blessed. I've got my brother's a graphic designer, and I'm not sure. One problem I don't have is a lineup of fathers wanting to come on and tell their stories. So I want to give a platform for fathers to come and voice their stories where they feel comfortable and they trust me and they trust someone that's not going to edit it out, and they can come and say it for what it is. So that's how it's come about. I released the first episode in January this year. Originally, the plan was to release one every fortnight, so that's what we were doing. But now that I've relocated back to Goldie, I was working away for a while. I'm here a lot more now, and I'm trying to pump them out a lot more quickly. So
nice. And I've noticed you've had so many different dads. So tell me about your dads from your perspective that have just been drawn to your platform.
Yeah, so originally I put out a post, just one photo, so that late last year that I was going to do. I hadn't made a logo. I was lucky because my brother's a graphic designer, but at that point in time, I hadn't designed a logo or anything. I just put a post up that I was going to be doing a podcast starting next year for fathers that have been through the family court to share their stories. And just hold that one post, boys were messaging, wanting to come on and tell their story. So since then, I'm very blessed with my first 10 guests because they got the ball rolling for me. It's been a test and adjust for me, a learning curve as I go on, getting people on that don't have ongoing court matters. And some fathers ring me, look, and they haven't been through family court yet. Some fathers I feel just want to get on here to get back at the ex, and that's not what I'm about. Some say, oh, but like
political flag.
I said, listen, bro, this is not what the platform's for. I'll test their terminology in regards to court and have they been through it, or do they just go through mediation? And so now, again, this is a learning curve for me. And naturally, I'm an introvert, believe it or not. But given that it's a podcast, I have to put myself out there. So I've had to create all these platforms. But fathers from all sorts. My second guest, he'd done 12 years in the family court system. 12, I broke after 3. So I've had broken daughters on, boys on. I'm trying to hit it from all different angles. Yes, the platform is about broken fathers, but I'm not trying to create a gender divide. I know there's some shit dads out there. I personally know some myself. That's not what this is about. That's not what this platform is for. Wow. It's for all the good fathers out there that are fighting for the kids, but they've been painted with the same brush. So
yes,
fathers from all different backgrounds. Sorry.
No, all good. And what's the common denominator or the common ground that you see with the dads or the parents that are going through the system from your angle? What do you see that seems to be that common pathway?
I might upset some of your viewers here when I say this, but it's the same blueprint, step-by-step allegation guide, right? I know there's genuine DV out there, 100%. I don't support it, but I know that there's people milking the DV system. Just like any system that's 100%. In place. Just like guys that go to the military, they want to milk the PTSD card to get a meal ticket or pension. It doesn't matter what system or what environment we talk about. The people will learn the system and they'll milk it. And it's always the same. A lawyer came out recently saying that if DV is involved in a family court matter, you're going to be entitled to more of the property pool. Now, this is incentive to me. In my eyes, we're giving all this incentive to people to put DV on. You get 20 days DV leave. You get a $5,000 grant. Now you're entitled to more property pool. I get it. There's genuine DV out there, but we're giving all this incentive for it to happen. So most of the fathers, it's the same thing. We've all been claimed as DV. We've all been claimed as to be a junkie. So we've all had to do hair follicle tests. We've all had to do drug tests. We've all had to do the circle of security calls. We've all had to do the men's behavioral pro. We've all had to do the same step-by-step guide, and which gets you anyway. It's just they always want more. So again, I know there's genuine DV out there. I'm not supporting that, but there's a lot of fathers out there that are getting stuffed over with fabricated allegations. And just like that, you can't see your kids because their ex-partner will put their children's name on the TPO, DVO, whatever state you're from, whatever you call it. And just like that, you could wake up one morning, kiss your kids goodbye, and then you come home that night, and then that's it. You can't get in your house. You can't see your kids. Just like that. It's crazy.
Screening for, I think, what's happening for even practitioners and lawyers and any other professionals that are out there is getting tougher, because now it's about how do we assess what is real and what isn't. A couple of videos ago, because I've had matters come in, and so my videos are usually triggered by things that are happening during my day or the last 24 hours. And every time, the last couple of times, I've had females call in who are petrified, have not gone to police, where they've gone through some pretty dark times with the perpetrator, and they're not coming forward. And what we're seeing when we're debriefing with each other is matters where some of these women are actually not coming out and chasing down these pathways to present a story around DV because they're actually genuinely afraid. And it's not suggesting that every other matter that is coming in front of the domestic violence courts are not telling the truth. But I think what is happening, it's very hard for people to assess these days. And so what they're doing is it's about, well, let's not take that risk. Unfortunately, you have got more opportunity because of protection for domestic violence for women is far greater. And so this is what we're up against. And we see this. I've seen a change because I got caught up in the court system, as you think we chatted, from 1999 right up into 2014. So I missed the tip of, I saw the changes coming in starting in 2008. And by that time, we were already in the Magellan court, but then we were back and forth in court after that. But I was always on the tail end, but not quite understanding. And it was only for me once where my ex-husband he put the first ever domestic violence order against me. And it was only when I walked into court that they switched it around. And the thing is, there was no incentive in those days. There was nothing. There was generally, if you had something going on, most matters were quite as transparent as they were coming forward in front of the courts. And you're right today that it's like a strategy that gets used. We're seeing matters from our end stretched out. So people, when it comes to the deciding factor of what they're going to do, it takes one genius, as I call it, to spell an idea in someone's mind. Because most people, when they separate, don't know what they're going to do they? Most people don't know the steps until someone gives them the idea, and it goes horribly wrong.
I think this is where lawyers need to be held accountable, because what I've learned was, and I know for a fact that, let's just say me and you work together and we've separated and we've got kids, and it's somewhat amicable, but we've got property, and all we want to do is try and agree to some sort of property settlement, and we'll put a co-parent agreement in place. So you'll find a law firm and I'll find a law firm. Now, a law firm you go to, they'll tell you, oh, you know what, put a DV on them. But you're like, but I'm not here for that. I'm just here to sort out property pool and do a co. Oh, no, but if you put a DV on them, you're going to be entitled more. And then they coerce that. They change their mind. Lawyers need to be held accountable, because lawyers are destroying a lot of people's lives out there. And
well, it's fueling of the parties, isn't it, Jared? And look, I have to say, we've got a really good team of legal lawyers that we're working with that are on our side to help us to keep our parents out of court. But I also know there's a lot out there that are running businesses. And so there's that objective. And I hear what you're saying.
When you're fighting, when your kids are involved, they're going to hijack your emotions. But back on that DV real quick, in my opinion, I could be wrong here, but I don't know if you heard about the case up here in Queensland. It was Hannah Clark, I believe her name was. The gentleman burnt his wife or partner and the kids in the car.
Yes.
Yeah. Terrible, right? Don't wish that upon anyone. It's bad. traumatic, don't want it. Now, from what I've heard is since that incident, they just thought, well, you know what, we're just chasing the bouncing ball. Righto, let's just blanket everyone. Cut. So it's like, you can't do that. I get it. That's bad. No one wants to see that. You don't want to see that. But that doesn't mean someone comes in and says XYZ, DVO, because DVO, you've lost your career, you've lost your job, you've lost your life, just like that. They need to set up a better plan. I know, for me, in my opinion, if someone hands a DVO, the police are just going to cover their ass. They're just going to sign off, hand the DVO. If you go to court, the judge is just going to sign off straight away because they'd rather cover themselves. Because if they don't stamp it off straight away and something was to happen, then it's going to fall back on them. So it's easier for them just to stamp it off and let you guys work it out in the background. But that's going to take 12, 18, maybe 2 years, a lot of money just to clear. So let's just say I think they need to change the process as well. If they do put a temporary protection on someone, sure, but that doesn't mean you lose your job, everything. It's temporary until you're innocent until proven guilty. It's like right now, it's just you're guilty until proven innocent, and they need to come up with a better plan. And as of this month, what's the date to the 20th? On the 26th of this month, because of that incident I just talked about, Hannah Clark, correct, apologies if I've got her name wrong, but they're passing in a new law now so that as of the 26th of this month, police in Queensland can hand on-the-spot protection orders if you're using coercive powers. I cannot stress enough how bad this is going to on the spot. Like the minister, Amanda Cam, a minister for DV, she says that this is great for. She says great for women and kids, and it never says males. And again, I'm not trying to create a gender divide, but if anyone's seen my episode, I put footage of me getting belted outside a restaurant, running down the street getting belted, like me in an Uber getting belted. Not once was she ever charged, because when you're a big tutted up veteran, no one cares really. So I was waffling on there, but
that's okay. But you're right. I was just going to, sorry to interject. I was just going to say to that, because we've always tried to be non-gendered because our focus is around the children, and that's what we try to bring. So what we've worked with, because I'm obviously collaborative with Joanne Law, who runs the mediation institution. So part of the work with our mediators is to say to them, when they note that there are challenges in the matter, to pause the process instead of just wiping that 60I, even if there is a domestic violence order, so that we can bring the parents to us and we can start to really grind through the layers and find out what's going on. A lot of people also are so ignorant to understand what the process looks like. And a lot of times what we're doing now, Jared, is with our fathers especially, we're saying to them, look, you can contest it, but we're up against a brick wall. And sometimes it's about how do you find the strategy in the strategy of the system itself. So agreeing to an undertaking sometimes is a softer approach because you save your 10 grand from going into court. And what you're then able to do is concentrate in the family court, because the family court judges, the judges in the domestic violence courts, they actually don't want to deal with it when they know it's part of a family court process. So they're normally just handballing it straight in there anyway. And sometimes what I think, what we're trying to educate parents to do is stop the fight. You've got to diffuse the fight. And we get how wrong and how the system is just so broken on so many variables. It's shattering to see. And even some of my professional colleagues, as well as parents that we work with, we all can see there's just these cracks everywhere. But our goal is just to minimize the court process. Now, I know with your story, what that would have been considered, I think, in the 10% where it had to be fronted up in court because there were so many layers that couldn't be decided outside of that, because you had what I call an individual that in somewhat by default and very quietly was working out the system and to try to fuel it with the ongoing allegations, the way she was working you into the web of your space in order to then throw you back out, just to thicken up the case. And there are cases like that. And it's about how do we identify those matters, that what we call the 10%, and then the system then, how does it understand and really what are the resources? Because it's like it's just a shattering process for everyone involved. And noting what you said, the profile, you're this big guy, tattooed up, present as if you're going to be on the path of where you're more the perpetrator. But what do we need to do to really explore? Who do we need to appoint? Who are the people that we need to start to really assess these cases so that they're on their, so they're displaying the merit that they're actually pathing on, as opposed to just immediately the expectation of you having to do all these courses, all these drug tests, all the things. And unfortunately, this is where the mechanics of the court runs. It suggests that if there's an allegation made, you've just got to be obedient and follow and do whatever the judge tells you. How do you hang in there? It's mind-boggling.
It's why the court's so backlogged. I don't know what it sounds like. I know it's for here, they're like triple backlogged. When I don't know for Victoria, but you rock up to trial. When I remember when I rocked up to my trial date, like I had to pay for the courtroom for the 3 days it was set for. And we rock up and like, oh, someone's in there. Like, how can someone be in there? These days, books. So what they do is they're so backlogged. They double book or triple, hoping that previous matter is going to be wrapped up or someone falls through because they're trying to catch up. I said, this is crazy. Like, we got sent home and I still had to pay for my legal team to attend the day that we were booked in for trial. Who are they to play God, messing with people's lives? People had to take time off work, had to spend all this money, and he just sits there with his gavel and goes, oh, sorry, come back another time. Especially with these protection orders that are going to be able to read it and hand out on the spot. Now that's going to backlog the courts as well, even more, because people are going, hold on a sec, I haven't done anything wrong. I'm all lined up. So
Queensland is slower than Melbourne. Melbourne, for some reason, I see them that they do tend to work through the system fairly quickly, probably because there's just the way they run. There's probably more cases here and they tend to flow. It still takes a long time, by the way, but it's not. I know Queensland is fairly slow. When we get Queensland matters, it takes a lot longer than probably most of the states that we're working with.
What's Melbourne doing different that Queensland isn't? Why is Melbourne so? Well, how is their court not backlogged like Queensland? I'm sure they're bit.
They're still backlogged, but I think they're just. I think since this new process where registrars have come on board to define what cases have to go forward or return back to mediation, I think that's happening a lot more efficiently. We've seen a change, and that makes a big difference because it's nearly like everyone just knows where it's going. And so therefore then you're just booked in a lot more sooner. So what we saw used to be 5-year wait. You're still looking at the system between 2 to 3 years as a normal time from start to finish if you're going into trial. But I just think it has reduced some pressure because of the registrars being that gateway to, let's say, the courtroom, and where people just can't go to court so quickly. They have to go through the process they have to do everywhere else because we run across all of Australia. But we just see, for some reason, Queensland is a bit slower, a lot slower than us here. So, and whereas we see Sydney more expensive. So and then Perth just runs on its own different merit altogether. So we do see differences. But then when you look at the profile of the problem, Jared, it's still the same. We still have where, like you said, you have these immediate cases that come up that are throwing it out for the rest of, let's say, good parents out there. So when you talk about the profile of certain cases where double homicides have been the outcome, the human side of us says, well, who can tell mental health spontaneously? So let's just cover it for all. But I think what they've got to try to do is reduce the pain points along the way and filter. It's all about the filtering process and how they can do that to minimize. And we try so hard at times to speak up because we are like what I call the bottom of the barrel. So we get to see cases coming in on a lot every daily where we are saying to people, let's find a way, because everyone's human. And at times people just, life gets really hard. So we try to, you've got a great team of collaborative partners that have got running all different services that we just try to refer all these people individually to get them the support they need, because our goal is to get them strong for their kids. But the difficulty is, for some, the system gets too hard and it breaks that human spirit. And I look back, because my ex-husband did 18 separate applications to the court. I did too. And when I look back now at that whole system, even for him, this was just a money-making process. I think he had about 6 or 8 lawyers, and everyone made their money. And I was really lucky. I had 2. I had one all the way through, and then he moved to, funny enough, to Queensland. And then in the last court case, I had to get someone else. But when I look back, I don't even blame my ex-husband. I blame the system for fueling the idea that that was the way to go, because I knew he hated spending money as much as I did. And it cost us a fortune. Like, this was our life savings that just totally broke me. And even when we had an altercation where he came to me, and it was interesting because I was listening to you before, and I remember look, we had our issues all the time, and it was always high conflict. And when I look back at some of the major incidents that took place, there was just no one there to help us, no one there to guide us. So the only thing you had was to go to court. These days now, probably the benefit is you can't just walk into a courtroom. So you have to really justify why you would be going in there again and again and again. Otherwise, they're just going to put you with a court mediator. So it just gets higher in cost. But I guess there's still, unfortunately, the people like yourself that are up against a person that is actually the perpetrator of the system and is fueled by those around her or him, whichever way, because it happens both sides, where they find ways to keep tapping. And the reason people like you're always going to be behind the 8 ball, and I feel I was behind the 8 ball all the time, because you're trying to live life, you're trying to concentrate on having your children with you. And so you're really always in that reactive state as opposed to being in a proactive state. There's nearly a form of intelligence with these people that find a way to use the system or work out the system to make it harder for you, to literally wipe you off as if you're non-existent to that child. And that's the battle.
Yeah, it is. I met with a broken father this morning for lunch real quick. He just called me up and he said, again, had a lot of questions. And he said, I'm filing for a family court. It's coming up. Hopefully I'll have it wrapped up in 12 months. And I was just, I don't want to burst your bubble, man, but I want you to change your mindset. Nothing is getting done in 12 months. But this is why I want to do the podcast, so I can educate fathers what to expect, do's and don't. Like, real quick, I was just taking notes. One father was on court for 12 years. I had one on for 10 years. What does that tell you about the system? How can a system, if I was involved in that system as a judge, I would be so embarrassed that there's a matter in front of me that's gone on for 10 years and I can't make up my mind. I'm sorry, this is not a system. 10 years, back and forth for 10 years, and you can't, the kids are 10 plus years now. So,
because there's reoccurring subjects though, Jared.
There's always new allegations.
There's new stuff, because that's how I got caught up. It's always something new. I don't know if with mine in 14, a judge he cleared out the courtroom and he brought out the list. It was like this roll of which I had no idea. I'd got so used to being in court, and he banned my ex-husband from ever applying to the family court ever again. It was just, he was mortified. For some reason, I think something must have, I don't know, the graces of God, that he just, for once, and he's still going around now, this guy, and because it was only in 14 was my last court case ever, and he actually banned him. And for the first time, I thought, someone's listening, because you just get, the trouble is they bring you, every time there was a new application presented to me, so where I was served, there was just something new. So he kept finding something brand new, yet I never withheld my son from him, ever, never withheld him. So it was just this obsession to, I don't blame him. I blame the system for making it easy for him.
Doesn't, like, I remember someone tried to explain to me, I'll stuff up the word here, but they talk about the memory, and as time goes on, your memory isn't the best. But for some reason, when your family court, as years go on, people's memory start to get better and better, and they can remember stuff clear as that happened 5, 6, 7, 8. You know what I mean? On this day, 8 years ago, this time, it's just like, we've already been in court for 4 years, and you're remembering stuff that happened now. Not like, I just think, I don't know, as a judge, what's it called? They have to err on the side of caution. Well, if you say that, someone's always going to say a really disgusting allegation because they're going to go, I better err on the side of caution here. And people learn the tactics. They learn the playbook. The lawyers know the playbook. And there's retired judges that are coming out. There's a retired judge in 2013 that came out and said how terrible the system is. Yeah. In 2013. All right, it's 2025. Has anything changed? Is anything ever going to change? If you've got retired family court judges saying how terrible the system is, lawyers coming out now, barristers, I uploaded my thing. At what point does someone go, okay, well, we better have a look at this? Lawyers are saying it, barristers are saying it, judges are saying it, cops are saying it.
But don't you think, Jared, parents have to start waking up and starting to really, this is why these platforms are important, because we need to start having conversations around how do we not fuel the system. Because we don't know how to stop fighting. We fall in love. It's all good at the time when we're lying, can I be straight, when we're lying down. And then we have this child or children. And then suddenly we look at each other one day and say, well, that was a bad idea, or I don't like you anymore. But then we don't know how to snap out of it. If you go to Switzerland, the family court process is like this. It's automatic 50-50.
I think Germany's the same.
So what happens is, unless there is a concern for domestic violence, that's when it gets heard in front of the court. So why are we not copywriting some of these better countries that have minimal cases where there's less conflict? And if you look at, because we work with a lot of with child abduction matters as well. And so we have to make it our interest for the clients to, where the children are being abducted to, what is going on in the court systems in those countries. And so when we start to understand it better, we also think, why are we not, as a country where we're supposed to be so advanced, yet we're not somehow replicating some of those other countries that somehow have this functioning well? Because my view is this is about the family unit. It's about keeping children. What are the best for children, both mum and dad, unless we have risks. So what are those risks? If there is sexual allegations, serious domestic violence to those children, capacity of a parent to be able to look after the welfare of that child, whether they can't feed them, all those things, then yes, we have a right to start exploration and go into a discovery. These have to be genuine concerns that we all have to be real about, because all of us would know that would be the right thing to do. But for the rest of it, what are we not doing right? Why, as parents, why can't we start? And this is when we put the co-parenting clinic together, it was purely for the basis of trying to keep parents out of court, because we thought, man, if you can just listen and let's just grind through some of the pain, we may be able to stop feeding these people that are trying to make it worse for you. Because once you're in, you've got no rights. And you would have found that yourself.
But see, with all these incentives, it's encouraging people to go to court. So here we are. So I'll tell you what, people go, oh, this is a conspiracy, whatever. I gave an example the other day on my Instagram story. I said, let's just run this scenario. Let's just say whenever there was a breakup, regardless, whatever, the father just walked. Didn't fight for the kids. I'm not saying people do it. We'll just run the scenario. Whenever there's a breakup, the father just walked. Whenever there was a DV allegation, he just didn't fight it. He just walked. Courts would be dead quiet, right? What law firms would be in business? Unless you want to go fight for the property pool, but we'll just run this scenario. Let's just imagine no fathers fought, didn't walked away from the kids, and then DV put one on and walking away. Well, no one's going to court for anything. Nothing. Well, what could you possibly go if one thing? So you said to before, we got to learn not to fight. I agree, but 100% I agree. But unfortunately, there's people out there like that have my ex that they're not adults. They're carrying on like kids. I wasn't fighting my ex. I was fighting the system just to keep my daughter in the country she was born in. I couldn't care if my ex had 2, 3, 4 boyfriends. I wish you, as long as they're good around my daughter, I wish you nothing but happiness. Honestly, I fell in love with you. We had our time. Move on. I wish you nothing but peace. But unfortunately, when we broke up, she rang my mum and said, "I'm going to destroy your son's life," and that's exactly what she did.
Yeah, because they find the cracks in the system. But I think what the system has to learn to do, which is what I would hope for, is that how do we put people, like what we want to do now? We've been running our co-parenting clinic now for nearly 10 years, 12 years will be in January. So what I want us to do, a few of the lawyers said to me the other day, or they've been talking to me, we need to get registered now properly in family court, because somewhere we're like the smaller stepping stone, but it's working. We're filtering through some matters where they could have got completely escalated. And at worst, we're getting a lot of them. Some have to go through. Some as worse. The worst we're getting them is in front of the court mediator, just for sometimes it's more financial than anything. But the children matters we're helping. And it's like, why does it struggle? Why does the system struggle to look at? There's so many people like myself doing really good work out there. And yet it just turns its head, is not looking, it's not recognizing, acknowledging some of these other businesses that are really genuinely trying to help people, counsel them through challenges, because no breakup's going to be great at the start, but how do we help those people so that they understand that it may seem like a good idea at the start, but at the end it's not going to be the best idea? How do we education and knowledge? I understand that it's not going to be for everyone, but there's got to be something. I think it takes parents, a whole lot of parents. And as you said, we're seeing lawyers leave the system because some of them are just finding it morally too hard. It takes that one case that just breaks them. I've sat down and had conversations with many different people, and I always get told this is the system. Sorry, Jared.
Sorry, if any of those lawyers that have walked off, I'd take my hat off to them for at least he had morals and values for doing that, because there's no way I'd be a family lawyer. Absolutely.
Well, I think what it is, in fairness, some of them genuinely do come in to purely want to just help. But then it's the realization that there are some particular, unless I think you're running your own practice, you've got the larger practices, again, they're just running differently. And look, it's a business. And I guess it's all about what's that ethical practice? How far does that go? And it's hard because people like yourself, even myself at the time, I felt like I became more of a victim of the system than I became a victim of my ex-husband and his views on how he wanted this to be, how he wanted it to go down, how he felt was his right to our son, because he wanted him overseas. And so these are the things that become a constant challenge. So what do you think needs to change? Just on your view, what do you think needs to change?
Well, I don't know how this gets done. So this is uncharted waters for me. I think there needs to be reform. So I guess the only way you're going to, correct me if I'm wrong here, the family court is to change legislation. Is that the correct terminology? To reform from the family court? Like, if you got cancer, you need to cut the whole thing out, otherwise it spreads. You need to start from the bottom. And it needs, how it's done, I don't know. So I understand people are like, oh, well, you've got a problem. What's the solution? Well, I'm fair enough. I'm trying to work on it. But family court is a problem. What's the solution? All I can think of, the whole Pauline, I know people aren't, some are fans, some not, but Pauline Hanson, the Jackie Lehman, there's politicians in their voice in it that it needs to be changed, but they just get brushed. Like, it's like this, no one wants to touch, no one wants to touch it. Judges don't like, the whole thing, you can't just change one little bit. It needs to be gutted out from bottom. How about change the legislation, review everything. All these independent children lawyers that were just lazy, they get CC'd in everything. Everyone involved in that system needs to be reviewed. And how does that happen? Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm not in Parliament. I don't know how those things happen, but it needs to be gutted out from the bottom, I think.
If it wasn't the system that we're changing, how do you think parents need to shift? What's your view on that?
Man, I think I was speaking to my partner about this. We're talking about I'm going to go off track here, but I'll try and make my point. We're talking about the change in generations coming through. There's 18-year-old girls coming to get through and going straight on OnlyFans. You know what I mean? And it's just like, what are we expecting coming through? Is the success rate from marriage failing so bad in this country because there's Tinder, there's this swipe, there's everything accessible? You know, like, I don't know. I think maybe because if some people break up, it's just like, well, no worries. I've got plan B, I've got plan C. I don't know. I'm just brainstorming here. Why? I was more than happy to co-parent. It was my ex that refused to co-parent. I don't know why adults can't just be adults. Some people can't be adults out there. So how do we change that? I don't know. I think some people have obviously some persona problems, whether it's be BPD or whatever, and they're narcissistic. I'm not saying everyone's like that, but my mum and dad split when I was 12. They're still best friends today. People still think my mum and dad are together. They still think my mum and dad are together. They broke up when I was 12. Why can't that happen now? I don't understand. Because my parents were from a different generation. I'm 75, dad's 72, I think. But yeah, is it the next generation coming through? The values change, is
I
technology?
think there is a culture, and you're right, technology, I think, because I was sharing a conversation with someone this morning that we're definitely seeing a shift and of the ages between about 35 to 45, where it's nearly easy to get out. It makes it nearly easy to just, traditionally you'd go to a lawyer anyway. Back in my day, there was none of this internet stuff. So you would go to a lawyer, but it was pretty straightforward. There was just nothing to, you didn't have access to information and influence. Whereas these days now, you open up all the social media platforms, everyone's got an opinion. And so someone will resonate with what it feels is in that moment for them the right thing to do. And so people are calling something all the time. So we're arguing, and especially, for example, common themes we see from our end, Jared, is where we see the dynamic of a family unit come to us. Parents don't want to be together. Mum may have chosen to give up her work to be at home with the children. The dad's the old school kind of guy, wants to look after, provide, do all that stuff. And then suddenly the matter has been divided. The parents have divided. They may have seeked out lawyers first, and suddenly one is saying to the mother, "Oh, well, there's definitely coercive control because there's financial control," and it puts an idea. Whereas we never had that idea when I was going through this. These were things that the word even allegation back in my day just wasn't a thing. You just wanted to split up. My only fear at my point for my case was it was just a cultural thing. He wanted our son, wanted him overseas. So that was our case. That was what that was about. And there was nothing else that was existing in front of us, even though when I look back, if I replicated our separation over that period of time today, I reckon my ex-husband would have been in jail because, and if I had been like many other people that try to utilize all the boxes where you can get the father behind bars if you wanted to. So do I believe that my ex was all of those things? No, I just believe that there was a combination where we see often we take into consideration culture. We look at the family background. And our mediators can't do that, but we do. We're able to really work out where do these people come from? What's their upbringing? What was those perspectives? And we put them all on the table and we start to break them down, because the minute that they trip into the system's just going to fuel them up and then create another story. And that's why I generally, and when I say this, because I meet up with obviously a lot of mums as well, many of them don't know about what kind of allegations to do or withholding. There's two ways that we see men and women when they separate. Men will worry about all the asset, the money, that the castles that they've built in order what's going to happen. How's that going to be divided? Women just worry about how they're going to survive, and they a lot will worry about how we tell the children. And this is the common theme we see between the genders, but both worry about how they're going to see their children. And so everyone has the same idea. They have the same point of view, but then somewhere the education of social media, as you put it, then you go to a lawyer. I watch some of these. I don't engage a lot on the social media groups, but teams are watching all the time because that research is important for us. And we see how the dialogue is going between the men groups, the women groups, conversations. And as men go through, and yes, you're right, and it's good that I heard you say earlier, sometimes the platform isn't for the guys that want to, most men want to run the political flag. But I always say to people, wait till your court case is over, because unfortunately this system is running differently for both genders. It is running differently. My concern is what's happening to the children, because like you said, you're going to wait 3-4 months, you haven't seen your kids, then you've got to wait another 4 months and you may be put on supervised access for a while. Even that, you don't know because that's not regulated. So how is that working out? Who's the supervisor coming in? How is that reporting being documented? What is the perception of the reader? There's all of these things. And sometimes Some judges will take that into consideration. At the end, the judge is going to look at the family rider, and they're going to be really their right-hand man. So that information in itself is also pivotal. But how do we keep people away from the system? How do we just hold them from tripping into there? And that's the conversations. I do strongly believe parents have more power than what they realize. They've just got to notch it down. Because even if you had someone like your ex where they were running forward, if the system had something in place to just say, stop, we need you to do this first or go here, it will force them to actually counsel through that. That's my view.
I agreed. I speak to a mate of mine who's a family lawyer now, but we served together 2 tours, and he tells everyone try and keep it out of court. But I think it's situation dependent, right? Everyone's case is different moving parts. For my example, my ex was trying to leave to England with my daughter. So she got a British passport. Little did I know, I thought we were part of the Commonwealth. I thought 2 parents need to sign off on UK passport. I can guarantee you are wrong. Only one does. Now, for me, I don't know how anyone else would. I had to go to court because
You would have
my
had
daughter,
to. I did for those matters.
6 months old. Sorry, she's blocked all communication. I don't know where my daughter is. She got a passport. I had to get the court to approve a PACE alert to flag my daughter from leaving the country. So I had no choice. And they got it put on me, and I was like, no way. That's not what happened. And I fought it, and we went to trial and won. And I only had to put another one on shortly after. But if you can avoid it, absolutely. But again, this is why I do the podcast. There's so many. I know what it's like to be at that start going, gee, uncharted waters, what do I do here? And now I've got this platform of fathers can share their stories, and the father that's making an app where you can go stage 1. Do you want to file court? Yes or no? Is there a DVO? It's like an app. You press it and it takes you to the next door and it gives you all these avenues. So you can avoid court. I never did mediation. I've never heard any good things about mediation from my guests that have come on. It all seems like they end up to family court. Bypassed.
I was going to say, the reason I teamed up with Joanne is because the mediators are all trained through that institution, are all what we call family dispute resolution mediators. So a lot of them have got experience in the high conflict and in the variables of matters. One of the goals when we collaborated about 5 years ago was to educate the mediators to say, don't give up. If you twitch that this matter needs more counsel before we go through the process, pause the process. And that's what they're doing, Jared. So they bring them to us and we then work with the families. So we work with them for about 2 to 3 months separately. We don't work with the parents together. And the breakthrough is that the parents then now with the changes of the legislation, there's a few changes now, which helps us to then work with the right lawyers. But what we're able then to do is navigate the parents, and we're there from start to finish. So now they have a pillar, a point where they can come to, and we're able then to talk to both of them at different times, whatever is going on for them, and generate the right people on their team to build that comfort. See, it's just the unknown, and people will spiral when there's the unknown. They start to escalate. They can't regulate their own situation because it's all the unknown. So what I love about, you're right, there are, maybe shattered after here, but there are mediators out there that I see, because we sometimes get the tail end of those matters that some parents just say, we tried here, it wasn't working out. You have to understand the layers of, you have to listen, but you have to understand from our end the layers of the cases. We say always every matter. I don't think I've come across one family matter the same. Are there profiles that are similar? Yes, but not the same. Why? Because at the end, it's those 2 people that have spent time together. So what we want to do, our goal is to constantly voice the children and really start to center the kids in this, what we call the family unit, and creating 2 really safe homes for these children. And that's what makes it achievable with us, and why we are constantly educating parents to say, just stop. Yes, I know you hate each other. We're not asking everyone to get together around a fireplace and sing Kumbaya. We're saying just slow down, because whilst your emotions are high, no one's making good decisions. Now, cases like yours and mine had to trip into the court. There was no other place for the decision to be made because we had a flight risk. So those had to take place regardless. But there are so many that don't have to. And we always talk about the 10% rule of must go to court, the 20% that go trip into court but should not be there, and the rest are staying with us. And that's what we're seeing. But we are constantly working with our mediators to really find pathways to help families just stay out of court. And what's happening too is, in fairness to some of the lawyers, we're having lawyers that are liking the way we're working, reaching out because they don't want to deal with all the emotional stuff. So we're able to then work with them and sort of filter for them the stuff they don't have to worry about. So they only need to worry about the technical stuff if they need to. We're saving people so much money. The amount of dollars that they're saving, because we don't charge over the top. So it's still a private company, but we're not charging like they would be going and putting money in a trust account. Inclusive of our mediators, if they're doing the financials together, they could probably finish off maybe with our mediators and ourselves, maybe no more than about 12 to 14,000, just depending on the case. And then the lawyers just are charging a flat fee just to get it through. These are the things that we're able to operate. So the parents, between them, let's say 20 grand, as opposed to spending up to 50 to 80 grand each going into court. And then the more complex matters are even higher than that. So I guess platforms like yours are so important because the voices have to be heard, because my attraction to your podcast when I was watching it was the fact that this is what needs to happen. The brave have to come forward, and you've got to make good, don't you? You've got to make good of the stuff that you've gone through to try, and how do we go into recovery as well? The other thing that we try to do, we run the parental alienation service as well with Stan Carossi, and we talk about the recovery for parents. What does that look like? How do parents like yourself, where the outcome hasn't been good, what's the recovery? Because no one talks about that. No one talks about how are we taking care of those parents that are on the other side, that unfortunately the outcome hasn't worked in their favour. How are we working with those people to minimise suicide, to minimise the loneliness, the isolation, all of those things? Because that's then another hour of conversation.
Yeah, you have to use pain as power, right? So me, my daughter's gone, and I try to explain. I imagine having a headache or migraine in your head that can come and go with medication, but I've got a headache or migraine in my heart that aches 24/7. It won't go away and it never will, unless my daughter comes back. So I can be down and down, like a lot of other fathers, and I'm not judging them. It's easy to be stuck down in there. I'd probably be still stuck down and out right now if my mate Matty said, "Why don't you do a podcast on family code?" Because this is what drives me. This is my person. It's rewarding, but it is taxing, because we're not talking about it's not a football podcast. We're talking about traumatic stories, triggering stories. It's from the heart, and I have half of Australia fathers in Australia calling, and I have to turn my phone on airplane, man, because one, I have my partner, she has 1,000 notification emails on phone. I can't do that. It gives me anxiety. All my apps have to be zeroed if I get a notification. So you can imagine, I upload an episode, there's notification going, and I have to clear them. And I try and respond to everyone. Now I just can't. It's impossible. TikTok, there's 500 content. So it's rewarding, but I have to find that balance where I have to fill my own cup up too. I just know that if my daughter ever does come back, I don't want her to see me down and out, whether it's 3, 5, 10 years. I don't want to go see her. He's down and out and drunk or drugged out. Or I'm here, I'm working, I'm surviving, I'm successful. I've been leaving this messages, time and date stamp for you, and I knew you'd come back, and here I am. So I wanted to be like, wow, that's my dad. Yeah, so that's my draw.
I was just going to say, my now tiny little baby that I was fighting for back nearly 28 years ago is now nearly 28. And it does pass. And you find when you see your kids, I think sometimes what's caught is a lot more important than what's taught. And when they see the stuff you do, only now is he having these conversations with me, and he's hit some understanding because he just sees that work because it's out there and I'm on social media, and his perspective now of understanding, because you tried so hard to preserve and protect him as best you can. And somehow I always talk to people about just whatever you do, just keep that light on, keep it just shining, because somewhere they find a way back and they find a way to really, half of you is always going to be with them. It just doesn't go out. That's why I always say there's two DNAs, not one. And that's going to be something that's always going to be part of them in her with you. And the work you're doing already, look at the profound response you've had, which has been amazing. And so these are the things that it's voices that need to have a platform, could save someone's life, Jared. And I think that's the good of all of this, isn't it? It's just, we're only the little people. I always say we're just down here, but we're making a difference.
At the start, with all the messages that were coming through, I'd screenshot them and print them off, and I'd make a folder. And I got to about 4 folders. I said, "This is not going to stop." So I just stopped. But I appreciate. I always make sure I reply. And there's guys that go, "Man, you saved my life. Thank you so much." I thought I was alone. I thought I was the only one that faced these allegations or had been down this road. So that's rewarding. Messages like that was what fuels me to keep driving forward, and it's a good feeling. But again, I have to find that balance. When I was working away, I was trying to do as many episodes as I could when I was back, and that was taxing on me. But I had a surreal moment the other week. I was at the airport. I had my earphones in, and I was standing there next to Greg Inglis. You probably don't follow rugby league, but he's a football player. And I had my earphones in. I was just looking at him going, "Oh, he's still big." This lady came up and asked for a photo of me. And I just assumed, she thought I was with the football team. I said, "Oh, no, I'm not a football player." She said, "No, I know who you are. Me and my husband, we watch your podcast all the time."
Amazing.
It was just kind of, it was so, I'm standing next to a famous football player, but you asked him for a photo of me, and I was just kind of, what the? It was surreal. And the amount, I'm an atheist, but I'm not against religion, but the amount of people saying, "Man, you're doing God's work. Thank you, man. God chose you to do this." It's a good feeling when you hear that, you know what I mean? It's just like, you know what? I think that maybe God chose me to go down this road because he knew that.
I'm a firm believer that everything just falls where it needs to for a reason. And this was not my chosen career. I will tell you this now, right, at all. But sometimes you just go, I can't waste the experience I've had, because then it leaves a stain on me around how I feel about the system. My ex-husband and I talked for the first time last year in nearly 27 years. 30, I know, or 30 years, I should say. Well, it was only because the dog sat on the cat and killed him, and he's not a dog person. He had to reach out. And I thought, all right, here we go. He reached out, which was amazing. And then we ended up talking for about 2.5 hours after that, where we met. And, you know, what was interesting, he said, "I think I went too far." And I went, "It's done." Because our son now is like, he's an adult, and I don't want my son, he carried this energy between us. It was horrible for such a long time, his whole life. He's never seen us together. So for me, it was about, there's got to be this place of peace. And even if he's not as much at peace with me or whatever that may be, the thing is, for me, like, people sometimes, I still have friends and family that were part of that journey with me, then angry with him. But I say, look, you've got to have some peace, because at the end, he carries what he did on himself. And I don't want to carry that on me. The best I can do is say thank you, because if he wasn't such a douchebag at the time, I wouldn't be here even talking to you. So there's this sort of a spiral effect that goes on. And I want goodwill for my son. I want him to learn that life can be good. It's what you make of it. I don't want him to be scared of relationships, scared of the what ifs. It's all about enjoying life and just taking all those things. And if you can help one or two people, and podcasts like yourself or programs like yourself are just brilliant, because these are the smaller people. We've got to start speaking up, and it will make a difference, because it creates that opening. Men don't easily step out and talk about their stuff. Women are very good at counselling each other. Men are not. And that's why we see a higher rate of suicide in men. So we need to find those platforms for men where they can go to and feel like they've got a place to go, and feel like that there's a bit of normality in the chaos, and know that it somehow, in all the darkness, it will be okay. You've just got to ride that wave. That's what I keep telling people. Just keep riding it, even if it feels really hard. As now, it somehow, you may not get the outcome you want in the moment, But I always believe everything will come round. It does. Anyway,
Yeah.
Jared, you're doing amazing things. Thank
Thanks,
you.
mate.
And
Thank-
it's great because this is one good thing about social media is you find people that you would not normally meet. So it's well done to
Yeah.
your partner for helping, because it's stuff like that that makes huge difference. So
Thank you very much.
easy.
Appreciate you. I'm sure we could speak for hours on this topic, but
Absolutely.
no, I appreciate
Absolutely.
you having me on.
No, very happy to have you on. So thanks to everyone that's seen today, and we'll definitely look forward to the next podcast coming up real soon. Thanks, guys. If you or someone you know could do with our help, please book that free consultation at Parenting Together Apart for Parents Not Together.